Hello and welcome to my first girly talk advice video. I have wanted to do one of these for such a long time because I get so many DMs from you guys on TikTok and Instagram asking me just different life advice questions, and I wanted to bring you a full YouTube video so I could give you like really good juicy answers. I've got my laptop pulled up over here, I've got a coffee over there, nice gloomy day outside. I've got a new filming setup. I hope it doesn't suck. I don't know if I'm married to it yet, but we'll see what we think. So let me know what you think. I put out a poll on Instagram asking you guys what advice you wanted, and you guys sent in all kinds of questions, and I'm really excited to get to a lot of them. We've got everything from nursing school to friendships as an adult to love advice, and I'm just excited to bring all of that to you. So I've got all of your questions pulled up on my laptop over here, so don't mind if I glance in this direction. We might be bopping all over the place because, like I said, you guys asked me so many different questions, so just bear with me. We are going to start with nursing school, though. This question comes to us from Sarah. She says, I finished nursing school in December, discouraged about all the negativity. Do you have any advice? Yes. I think we're in an unfortunate time for our profession right now where there is a lot of negativity. And I think a lot of that comes from nurses are burnt out, especially after the pandemic. And I think there are so many nurses who kind of felt let down after the pandemic too. Like we were heroes and now all of a sudden the public just forgot about us again. And that can feel really defeating. Also, I think that there's issues. Obviously, I'm very fortunate to work in California, but I know that there's issues in every other state in the country in terms of patient ratios and pay being absolutely awful for nurses in terms of like what it should be. And I think a lot of those things get talked about more because they are so difficult. And you should know that you will face challenges. I won't sit here and lie to you and say that you won't face challenges. However, my greatest advice is to take that negativity and separate it from you and your patient in the room. For me, there is so much bullshit, for lack of a better word, that exists in corporate healthcare, and we're always gonna feel like we're not being taken care of. But at the end of the day, you became a nurse because you wanted to help people. And that's what I always try to focus on. So when I step into my patient's room, I leave all of that negativity outside the door, and I just think about being able to help somebody in their most vulnerable time, which is why most nurses go into the profession. And for me, like that's where I come alive. Like my heart is the most full and the most happy in rooms where I get to help sick kiddos and their families and get to help them go home. Like that's so freaking cool that you get the opportunity to do that. And so any of the negativity, try to flush it out. To be honest with you, I give this advice to my husband all the time because as all of you know, he is just about to finish nursing school and he kind of feels the same way. He's a little bit nervous to go into the profession at a time where there is so much negativity, but just try to keep your eyes on why you started this in the first place, your why. And I know that sounds like so cliche, but like genuinely my nursing program had us keep this little piece of paper in our wallet. So when we would forget or we would lose sight of why we decided to become a nurse in the first place, and we would get too consumed by all the negativity of nursing school and how stressful it is, we would read that piece of paper. And I did that even through into when I started becoming a nurse, because for me, like I needed to keep going back on those days that I felt that negativity kind of overwhelm me. I would go back and read it and I would just be like, this is why I'm here. And so that's my best advice, is to just keep going back to that when you feel the negativity overwhelm you. Next up is another nursing question. It comes to us from Hoffman Music. What do you think on travel nurse pay cap in Iowa? She's an Iowa nurse. What a dumpster. Yeah, I think it's trash. I would agree. I hate the idea that, especially after the pandemic, hospitals knew that nurses would want to transition into travel roles because those were the ones that were paying more. And rightly so, because nurses were being paid, and still are being paid, atrocious salaries for what they're expected to handle, especially like in areas like the Midwest, where they're expected to take on like 10 patients and get paid $26 an hour. Like everybody would quit at that point. And so, especially when, you know, the rates started to like go sky high during the pandemic, nurses went to travel. Of course, like who wouldn't? If you had the opportunity to go travel and like make the money that you should probably deserve to take care of all of those patients, why would you not? But I think hospitals are getting smart, or they're falling back into their asshole roles. I hate to say that, but they just, this is where the corporate part of hospitals, you gotta separate that from the profession, from like your love of being a nurse, because if you only focused on that, no one would become a nurse, because there's so much just bad things that happen in the corporate part of healthcare. And this is one of those awful things where hospitals start to take a step back and they're like, oh, we were paying too much money in the pandemic and now we can pull it back a little bit and we're gonna do you one even better and we're gonna put a cap on it. And I think it's bullshit. I honestly am not a fan. I think it's so disrespectful to the profession. Like, let your nurses decide what's best for them. Some nurses will actually choose, including myself, to take a lower paying job at a less stressful facility. I did that, like I said, and I was okay with that. Like, I was okay with making less money. But I could have stayed in my old job and made double. I kid you not, I took a 50% pay cut to go to a hospital where I would be less stressed out. And I could have stayed at that old hospital if I wanted to and keep making that double the income that I am now. But I didn't. And I think it's so shitty for them to try to make the decision for nurses. That's not fair. Like, let nurses decide what's best for them and what role fits them the best. Like, stop trying to put us in a pay box, because it's so, it makes me angry. So that's what I think about it. I think it's trash. This next question comes to us from EMCC Burns. How do you deal with the pain control with your shoulder? This is a complicated question. First off, I have a really high pain tolerance. I can thank my uterus for that, really, because she's a biatch. And once a month, I literally could be in the fetal position for all 5 days of my period because my cramps are so bad. But I've had to learn how to just function past it because I don't have a choice but to carry on with life. And so I feel like I can thank my uterus for giving me a really high pain tolerance and the ability to like push past pain even when I don't want to. I'm also really strong-minded. Like, I'm stubborn. I'm really stubborn. And I don't like to feel low. I don't like to feel sad about it. So genuinely, I strong will my way through it. I know that that's probably not the best thing to do, but it's the only thing I've been able to do to get through it. Otherwise, like treatment modalities that I use outside of my own mental willpower, I do a lot of cupping. You guys see the like octopus marks on me a lot of the time. That helps me tremendously. It hurts so bad when I put them on. I won't lie to you. It hurts and is very uncomfortable. And I literally have to like deep breathe my way through like the first like 2 or 3 minutes that I have them on. But when I take them off after 10 minutes, oh my God, it's the most beautiful like muscle release, because my pain goes from my shoulder like all the way up into my neck. And so for me, like cupping is one of the only ways that I can release the tension that's there, because I just can't stretch it deep enough because I don't have the range of motion. Like when I try to move my shoulder around too much to stretch it, it causes more pain. So I try not to do that. I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with that one. But the cupping is magical. You can buy your own set on Amazon. Of course, like do that with assistance from like a physical therapist if you can. That's how I learned how to do it to myself. But like that has helped a lot. Ice, heat. I take a lot of baths. My husband will tell you I'm a bath girly. I take a lot of Epsom salt baths because it helps to like loosen those muscles. Because for me, like I have joint pain, but a lot of my major pain comes from my muscles like death gripping my shoulder because the joint is so messed up. So I do a lot of baths, and Epsom salt, the more the better, like half the bag in the bath. People always make the mistake of only putting like a cup, like the directions on the bag say. No, put half the bag in there and that will help a lot. And I really try not to take oral ibuprofen or Tylenol because I find that it really messes with my stomach. And I made that mistake very early on in my shoulder injury where I took way too much ibuprofen and I gave myself gastritis. I do not recommend that. But I do use Voltaren. Voltaren is an over-the-counter anti-inflammatory cream. I don't use it every day. I mostly use it on the days where I'm like really struggling. And that does help a lot. And in between that, deep breaths. And like I said, just like a will to move through it. I don't know. I guess I've just always like had that type of like stubborn, hard-headed willpower that like I will get through things that are hard. Like I'm stronger than what this is and I'm gonna get through it. And I feel like courage a lot of the time has really been like what's got me through it. And don't get me wrong, I have really hard moments. I have really difficult moments. I don't share them publicly all the time. I probably should. But I do have really hard moments, and I don't want you to think that I don't like really struggle a lot of the time, because I really do. But I just like really try to like pick myself up by the bootstraps every time and like keep moving forward, because that's the only choice I have. So Hopefully that's helpful. This next question goes kind of hand in hand with my shoulder. This comes to us from BridTully84. Advice on advocating for your health and how to get through when doctors aren't listening. I've had a lot of struggles with this, as a lot of you guys know, through this adventure with my shoulder. Actually, that hurt really bad. Sometimes when I do one of these, not a good time. I've had a really hard time with not great doctors. As a lot of you guys know, like one of my first orthopedists was awful, and I mean awful. And I can't say that I advocated for myself well in that room because I felt so put off by like how rude he was. But what I will say is that when I exited that room, I told myself, I am sure as hell never going back in there. Because the last thing you want to do is stay with a doctor that's not listening to you. There are so many other doctors out there. And so to be honest with you, like my greatest advice is if you feel like a doctor is not listening to you, that doctor is not the right doctor for you. And you're allowed to keep moving forward. It's just like friendships don't work sometimes, or relationships at work don't work sometimes. Like sometimes you just don't mesh with people. And sometimes that person can be a physician, and physicians are generally burnt out just like nurses are. And so I always try to remember that like sometimes they're just like not in the right place to be compassionate. But like when I need compassion, I need to find somebody that's going to give that to me. And so I firmly believe in like switching doctors when you feel like you're not being heard. I do feel like it is important to speak up for yourself. I always tell my husband, like before I go into an appointment, I make a list on my phone of like the things that I need addressed before I leave that room. And I really do try to stick to that. I do try to be firm about it. I guess as a nurse, I am really good at advocating for patients, but for myself, like it takes preparation. Like I have to like muster up the courage to advocate for myself. So I highly recommend writing everything down that you would like to talk about. And again, if you feel like those points are not being addressed well by that physician, you get the hell out of there and you go get another doctor, because that doctor's not the doctor for you. Okay, this next one is kind of going back to nursing, and I did get several questions about this. It comes to us from Jula Marie, and it is navigating the deaths of patients and traumatic events witnessed by healthcare professionals. Okay. I didn't do a good job of navigating this when I was a new nurse, and I would like to tell you that because I made a lot of mistakes that I think other people can do better, especially new nurses. I genuinely tried to just dissociate my way through it for the first like year. And I worked in a pediatric cardiac ICU where I did lose a lot of kids, and more than probably most people lose in like pediatric med-surg jobs. And so that was really, really hard. And nobody teaches you in nursing school how to navigate that. And we honestly should get free therapy. It's a shame that we don't, but that's a story for another day. The one thing that I highly recommend is don't just dissociate yourself away from it, because it will catch up with you. And it did for me. And it hit me really, really hard and really, really ugly. And I don't recommend doing that. I do recommend finding out how you best process difficult situations. Some people need to talk about it. And for those people, it is very much recommended that you find a therapist. Some people need to like get it out of their system somehow. Like some people need to like remember that person in their own way, or write about it, or sometimes you gotta cry it out. Like I wish that I had cried it out more times in my car after work than I did, because I think I needed to feel it. Because it's really difficult when the grief of a patient becomes yours, but it's not really yours, because you were a part of the moment, you were a part of the situation, but like it's not your family member. So you don't get to have all of the like funeral and like the closure, you know, so it's grief without closure, and that's so difficult. And so you have to find a way that you can give yourself closure, whether that's therapy, whether, like I said, that's remembering that person. Like I would, you know, just like remember like really good memories that I had with that kid, or I would try to go visit their parents afterwards. Like, you know, there's just like different things that like helped me. I found that going to the patient's funeral services, because sometimes healthcare providers, nurses, and doctors are invited by families to go to the services. I actually found that to be harder for me, because it made the grief so palpable, and the families, you know, thanking us for like trying as hard as we did to save their family member, like that actually made it so much harder for me to be able to let go and to process that grief. So for me, that wasn't what was best. But I think you have to make the decision for yourself at the end of the day of like, what is the best way for you to process it. But you have to process it. Don't put it in your pocket and expect it to just go away, because it will come back to haunt you. And I will tell you that. So you have to find how you deal with it best. I mean, truthfully, we should be given free therapy. Like I said, I will live and die on that soapbox, but it's a TED Talk for another day. This next question kind of piggybacks off of that. I got a question from BK Cheap, and it is, what support did you wish that you got in nursing school that you didn't receive? Genuinely, we should have received some type of like education on how to deal with grief and how to navigate death and dying, because we had a class about quite literally like the physicality, the physiology, if you will, of death and dying. But we didn't have a class on like what you're supposed to do as the nurse in the middle of all of it. And I think it's such a tragedy that we don't equip our nurses with that, because that is what leads to possibly like the highest rate of burnout. Like for me, it did. That was what wound up getting me in my first couple of years of nursing. Like I burnt out so hard because I wasn't processing the grief that I should have been, because I didn't know how. And so I think that there should be some type of education on like, I don't know, maybe like discovering those ways that are the best for you to process grief. But I just feel like that's so missing in our nursing school journey. And like my husband's in nursing school right now, and they don't talk about it at all. And I know physicians are lacking that in their programs as well. So like, it's definitely something we should be doing better as a whole in like healthcare education. We're not being equipped well enough. And so I wish that was something that we got more of. Going off of nursing school, I got another question from Katie Monda asking, nursing school, I'm in my first semester and I feel like I'm drowning. Okay, you're not drowning. You feel like you're drowning, but I promise that you're not, okay? And I know that the feeling of it, though, is quite overwhelming, especially in your first semester. But my greatest advice always is, A, you wouldn't have been accepted into nursing school if you weren't capable to handle it. So just remember that you're capable much more than you think that you are. And B, I always just like to remind nursing students that like it's so important to just take one day at a time, because that's the only thing you can control, is what's right in front of you immediately right now. You might be stressing about a test 2 months from now. Don't do that, because that's not today. And today is, like I said, the only thing that you can control. And it's way too overwhelming to try to think of your entire nursing program as a whole. So genuinely one day at a time. That's how I survived it. I also recommend making friends in your program. My husband said that he was going to be a loner in nursing school. He was like, I'm not making friends. I'm not going to study with people. He always studied alone. And so he thought that was going to work in nursing school too. Don't do that. You have to have a tribe, because those people genuinely like take some of the weight off of your shoulders. For me, they really did. And so I just like so recommend like making friends. You got to have friends, and just like a support system that understands truthfully like what you're going through, and who can like help you remember to do certain things. Like we would have this like group text, and I remember like some days like one of the girls would be like, oh hey, like you guys remember that like this is due, and I'd be like, oh my god, shoot, like thank you for saying that. So honestly, like even if you feel like you're normally somebody who likes to be alone and independent in your studies, make friends, have a little tribe. Like it makes all the difference in the world, and my husband has found that to be true. So I think this is good advice. Okay, this next one comes to us from Denise Beecher. She says, how do you stay so upbeat and joy-filled in such hard moments that you face? I think this goes back to like me being such a strong-willed, like hard-headed human being. I think that life has also never been easy to me. So I just don't expect for it to be ever. Like I actually expect hardship more than I expect for things to be easy. And I'm not saying that that's like a great mindset to have, but it has allowed me to move more fluidly through difficult times, because I know that I've gotten through difficult ones in the past. And so if I was strong enough to get through those, then I'm strong enough to get through the ones now. And also, I genuinely do try to feel out those feelings. Like I really do. You can ask my husband, like I often do that, and I don't make that public, like my struggles. And I feel like I should maybe a little bit more than I do. Like I do share with you guys when I'm having hard times, but I also, try to show up for you guys in the most positive way, because that's the version of myself that I enjoy living in the most. And I think that is, for me, is like how I stay so positive, is that like, things might be hard, but I still have so much going for me, and I still have people who love me, and I have, just like I have a good life despite the really difficult things. And don't get me wrong, like I've been through a lot of shit, okay? But I'm really grateful still for like all of the really wonderful things I do have in my life. And so I really try to focus on those when I feel difficult times weighing me down. And this doesn't work for everybody. And to be honest with you, I should have probably gone to therapy a lot more than I did. I was just on Lindsay Scrub Hacks podcast recently, and she was like, "Oh, you've been to therapy, haven't you?" And I said, "No, actually, I really have not." So when I tell you to go to therapy, I'm really telling me to go to therapy, but I can't afford it. But I genuinely feel like I probably could have done a lot more of it. But I feel like instead, I have just genuinely tried to really address and talk out my feelings as they happen in real time, even to myself, or I write them out, or, I just like try to process them as they come. That way they don't all weigh me down. Again, things I learned in my first couple years as a nurse too, that if you just take those feelings and you put them in your back pocket, then when you have a new one that comes on you, it's so much harder to get through it more resiliently, because you're dealing with more than just that present feeling. You're dealing with all the ones that came before it. And for me, like, that has really helped me to remain positive and to feel less overwhelmed in difficult times, is because I just try to take on one at a time. And otherwise, I do have really difficult times. I know that I show up and I give you guys like my most positive, happiest self, but like I do have a lot of moments that are really hard, and I do share some of those with you guys. And please let me know if I should be sharing more. I'm happy to. I guess I just don't want to show up on the internet and complain all the time either. So that's why I've tried to do it in like funny ways and like Wine It Out Wednesday. But like, if that would help you, I'm so happy to be vulnerable like that, because for me, like, that's why I'm here. Like, I share myself on the internet, not for my own personal, like pleasure. Like, I do it because I hope that one of you feels less alone in my virtual presence. And so if it would help you to see that side of me more, I'm happy to share it. So you just let me know. And you're not alone. You're not alone ever in your struggles. You don't have to go very far to find somebody that's struggling with the same thing. So just remember that you're not alone and you'll get through it. Okay, I got a couple questions about online dating, which is kind of funny because online dating didn't exist when I met my husband. Well, it did. Match.com existed. But Match.com was really the only thing that existed when I met my husband 14 years ago. So I only know about online dating through my friends. And what I will tell you is that my bestie Megs, my girl Megs, that girl and I have been best friends since we were in middle school. And she started online dating, and I remember because I'm always very interested in it, because I'm always like, how does this work? Like, how does this happen for you? How do you meet people? Like, how do you know if you want to meet up with them in person? And she kissed a lot of frogs, and I mean a lot, to the point where I think she even was like, do I just give up? Like, do I just like forfeit because this is not working for me? And then she met like a really, really wonderful guy, and they actually just like moved into their first little place together, which is super fun. And she wouldn't have met him had she not chosen to go back in like one more time. Genuinely, that's where she was. She was like, okay, fine. I'm just gonna go back in one more time and see if I can, find somebody that like makes me happy and I can make them happy. And she found her man's. So I will say that I think that perseverance does pay off in the online dating world. Outside of that, I can tell you my husband and I watch a lot of Catfish, and I can't even fathom what it's like to try to work through all of that as a person trying to date now. And all I can tell you is I'm so sorry, because I don't know what that's like, and I don't have any real advice for you outside of that, other than like, you'll know when you find the right person for you. And don't settle for less, because it'll never work out in the long run anyways if you settle for less. So don't waste your time. Your time is too precious to be with somebody that doesn't adore being with you all the time. Like, you deserve that. And so, yeah, I hope that's helpful a little bit. I'm so sorry I don't have as much experience in online dating. I can tell you that I dated a lot of not nice guys before I dated Kyle. I did have several boyfriends before I met Kyle. I know that I met him when I was 18, but like, I had boyfriends. And I had one with anger management problems who told me that I looked like his ex-girlfriend, and that's why he hated me sometimes, because I looked like his ex-girlfriend, and his ex-girlfriend made him mad. And so he would yell at me, and he would be like, oh, that it's not because of you. Like, that's because you look like my ex-girlfriend. And that was, I sat in that relationship for a while before I realized that it was really unhealthy. I dated a guy who cheated on me for 5 months, and I found out from the girl that he cheated on me with. Solid. I dated a guy who was doing drugs that were literally in the glove compartment in the car that I sat passenger seat in for like months, and I had no idea there was drugs in there the whole time. And then he broke up with me on my birthday. So like I dated some frogs. I wouldn't even call them frogs. Like they were sharks. They were assholes. And so when I met Kyle, I don't know if maybe that like helped me just know, because people are always like, how did you know that Kyle was the one? I'm like, I just knew. Because I was just like, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel this good with anybody ever again. Like I'm never going to be this excited to see somebody ever again. And I was so right. And like, but now when I look back, people are, oh no, my light died. You know what? We're going to have to persevere. Hopefully it's not making that big of a difference. It probably isn't. It's kind of a dinky light, but anyways, we're going to keep going because I don't have another one. I'm so sorry. I have a new light coming in the mail today that's supposed to have better battery power. So yay. But yeah, people are always like, how did you know that Kyle was the one? And like, I just knew. And really, truthfully, that is a serious real life thing that happens. I know that people always say that. They're like, when you know, you know. No, when you know, you know. And you also know that when you have suspicions that it's not the right person, they're usually right. So listen to those. And that's my greatest advice. I got a bunch of questions also, but especially one from Bizablowski. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But I got a lot of questions, including one from her, about like, how do you love your body? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't portray online like how much I struggle with body image. Like, and I really do. I've never been a thin person like from childhood. And I could say that that's genetics. I could say it's because I like snacks. I don't know. But I have always really struggled with like not looking the way that I want to look, or always thinking like I'm going to be happy when I look like this. But until then, I'm just going to keep beating myself up over the fact that I don't look like that. And that's such a shitty mindset to live in, and it's so defeating. The one thing I will say that has helped me a lot is to, instead of focusing on like what I look like, to focus on what my body can do. Because health at the end of the day is like so much more important than like what you look like. Sometimes some of the skinniest people are the most unhealthy people on the planet, who have the worst diets, who just like don't live happy, healthy lives. And so I always remind myself that like I really try to like be more focused on being healthy and focusing on like what my body can do. And like exercise is not a punishment. It's not to burn calories so that I become skinnier. It's to become stronger. Like I've really tried to replace words with other ones that are more positive. And I also like remind myself that there are other people in the world who want to look like me and who don't. And like I always remind myself that like you're only as you always want something different. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like the grass is always greener on the other side, but it's not actually. I think that it's actually greener to figure out the things that you love about your body and to keep telling yourself those things. And don't wait to be happy until you look like something or until you reach your goal weight. Like that's trash, because life can be happy before that too. And it turns out it's probably a lot easier to get to those places if you enjoy the body that you have and are thankful for it along the way. And so to be honest with you, as much as I struggle, I just like genuinely try to focus on just being healthy and being grateful that my body can do what it does and that I can go exercise 5 days a week. And I could probably spin circles on the bike around a lot of people. And so I'm really like grateful for that. Like that's something I've worked really hard for. And so embracing those things for me has like really improved my body image. However, like I said, I still struggle. And I, again, should probably share that more online than I do. So if that's something that would help you, I would love to share that more. I guess I just am not always sure like what people want to see from me, because I'm such a snacks cocktails girl, which is super fun. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But I do like to share those like other sides of me. I just am not always quite sure if like people want to see that. So let me know. But just remember that the body that you live in takes care of you. And that's a really cool thing. So love it at least for that. All right, our next 2 questions come to us from Mr. Bug. And the first one is how to maintain a strong marriage. I have been married to my husband Kyle for the last 6 years, but we've been together for 14. We survived all of our 20s together. So I think that I have a good ground underneath me on how to like keep a good marriage, because we've been able to for the last 14 years. So those are my prerequisites. But first off, I always just like never stop chasing Kyle, if that's like the right word. I just always try to remind him that like he is the best guy in the whole world, and like he's my favorite person, he's my best friend, he's the love of my life, like he's the most handsome guy I've ever seen. Like I just like always try to keep like dating him, because I think that that's so important, and that keeps like the magic of your marriage alive. So that's the first thing. Secondly, love languages. It is so important, and I will live and die on this soapbox, that like you have to know the love language that your partner gives and receives love in, because sometimes those can clash. Like for example, let's say that like one person is a words of affirmation, like love giver, and the other person receives love best by actions. That those 2 people are probably not feeling the love from each other, because if you're not giving it in the way that your partner best receives it, then like you're just not getting through to them. And so I always tell people like you have to have that conversation, and like it's a pretty easy one for most people. There's literally quizzes you can take online. That sounds so stupid, but like the other person has to feel loved, and you also have to feel like you're showing them love. And so it's just like so important to know like how your partner does that, because often 2 people will be different. And so it's just like really important to know that about your partner. And so for Kyle and I, like that has really helped. And I just like try to like always still do little things. Like I leave notes in his lunchbox that tell him how wonderful he is and how proud I am of him and how much I love him. And like I make his lunch, even though he tells me not to, but I know that like it makes him feel good when I do. And so I always make his lunch for school, because it's like no skin off my back, and I know that like it helps him feel like cared for. And it shows him like how much I love him, you know, and I support him. And so I just always keep trying to do like little things like that to keep our love alive. But those are the things that I think help the most. And yeah. The second question is, do Kyle and I want to have kids? Yes, absolutely yes. I actually get this question a lot, but I don't talk about it that much, because my journey to motherhood has not truthfully like gone the way that I wanted it to. And that kind of hurts me to talk about a lot of the time. It actually hurts a lot for me to talk about it, which is why I don't talk about it as much. But I very much want to have kids, and so does Kyle. It's something we've talked about like since the start of our relationship. And so we never expected to wait this long. A lot of you guys know that when I was 26, I developed tremors after like 4 years working as a nurse. And you probably don't see them unless I hold my hand out to you, which is because I'm medicated. And I'm really grateful and really lucky to have access to medication that really controls my tremors, which is awesome. Bad side to that is that those medications that I've taken, like all of the ones that are available on the market that treat my tremors, are ones that you absolutely cannot be pregnant on, or it would very much damage a baby. So when I started taking medication so that I could do my job as a nurse, because I can't have lack of control of my hands in the ICU. Like that's just it's not an option. So for me, in order to be a nurse, I needed to continue to take medication, but that also took away the ability to have kids when I really wanted to. And so Kyle and I made the decision that we would put him through nursing school next. And that's where we're at right now. He's almost graduating. And so our plan is that once he's graduated, that I will be able to back off of my role as a nurse for a little while in order to stop taking medication, because there's a good chance I'm going to be really uncomfortable for a while, and that we can have babies. And I'm really excited for that chapter of our life. I am a little nervous for what it means in terms of my tremors, because you don't always know like what the tremors actually. I've really only ever taken one med holiday just to see what my tremors looked like, truthfully as an experiment on whether or not I could stop taking medication to have a baby. That was the purpose of me doing the experiment and doing the med vacation. And it went really poorly. I was really uncomfortable, and that was the last time I tried to be unmedicated. And so I don't know what this is going to be like for me. I'm a little nervous, but I'm so willing to get through it, because I just want to be a mom so bad. Like, I don't have words to describe how much I want to be a mom. So I like really look forward to that like phase of our life, because Kyle and I have both like really wanted it, and we've waited a really long time for it. And I would be lying if I said that it was easy to watch my friends like reach those milestones and to not be there myself, like, because I want it so bad. But I think it's coming. It's coming to us once Kyle starts working. Like, hopefully I'll be able to like come off of my meds. And I have a really great neurologist now, who is the first one out of the 4 that I have had throughout my journey with this condition, who has helped women my age with this condition get through pregnancy, which is really cool. Like, she's such an incredible asset in my healthcare team, and I'm like so grateful to have her. So she has like medication options that I can utilize later on in my pregnancy if I'm really miserable. So we're just gonna have to kind of take it as it comes when I get there. But like I said, I'm like willing to do all of it because I'm just like so excited to be a mommy. I can't wait. So yes, we do want kids. We really do. I just don't talk about it as much because it's really hard to talk about it without wishing that it was happening right now. So yes. Okay, I'm going to do one more question because I think it's a really good one. It comes to us from Kim, and it's how to make and find friends as an adult. This is a hard one. It's weird, like, how hard it is to, like, put yourself out there to make a new friend. Like, I don't know. I, like, fear that judgment so much, and I get so nervous. But the thing that I always remind myself of first and foremost is that you have a lot to offer, and you especially have a lot to offer as a friend. And so, you know, if rejection is something that you fear, just know that if you feel rejected by somebody, they shouldn't be your friend in the first place. Because if you're putting your best self out there, that's their problem if they don't want it. Secondly, I find the best way to make friends as an adult is to find a friend while doing a common interest. Like for me, I do social media, which is a passion of mine that has become something that I get to do for kind of a job. But it's also something that has allowed me to make connections with other people who enjoy making content, which is super cool. Like, you guys know my friends Bree and Mel. They both share with me the love of making content, and that was what sparked our friendship. But our friendship has only deepened since then because we've, you know, found other commonalities in our lives, and we've become really, really good friends over this one common interest. And I think that that's like so important to have that as a foundation, because you can always come back to it. And then you always have something that you enjoy doing together. Like, we enjoy making TikToks together more than I can even tell you. We've only been able to do it in real life together one time, but we do enjoy like seeing each other on the internet. Like, I don't know, it's so different. Like, it's so fun. Like, it's just fun to like share that together. And so I highly recommend, like, maybe go take an art class if that's something you like to do. Go to Zumba. I love Zumba. I live and die for Zumba at the gym. If I could do that with my shoulder, I would be, because it's so much fun. And I like met all kinds of like fun people doing Zumba, and I would see them once a week, and it'd be so fun. I would look forward to it. I look forward to those days coming back in my life, actually. But like, that's such a fun way to make friends. Take fitness classes at the gym if that's something you like to do. Just like put yourself out there, because you never know like who you might meet unless you do. And like I said, if you experience rejection along the way, because that's the thing that we all fear, then those people are really not meant to be in your life anyways, and you just move on to the next, you know? But yeah, go get out there and make a friend. And you guys are my friends. I hope that you always feel that. I know it's really hard because we have this like giant interweb in between us, but like, you guys are my friends. And that's kind of actually why I wanted to do this like girly advice video, because it's kind of fun to just like feel like we're having girl talk, you know? We're just like you and me hanging out. And I hope that you guys found some of this helpful. Let me know if you want me to do another video like this, because I'd be more than happy to. I could do one maybe once a month. I thought that'd be really fun. And make sure you give it a thumbs up, because that really helps me at the end of the day to know whether or not you liked it. And always make sure to subscribe so you never have to miss my face. And I'll see you in the next one. I love you. Bye. I want it better than the weekend.